Hello everybody, welcome to Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old, and today, talking about album number 5 from the Chemical Brothers, Push the Button. Alrighty then, one thing I've noticed about the Chemical Brothers is that there's like no consensus for opinions on any of their albums. The closest thing to a consensus that a Chemicals album was good is maybe Dig Your Own Hole. Possibly also Further, but even so, there's like no Chemicals album that seems to please everybody. If I were to make an ARTV ripoff ranking of the Chemicals albums from best to worst, then I'd be very unlikely to see someone completely agree with it. For instance, this album here, Push the Button, is pretty damn controversial. Some people love it, some people think it's okay, some people hate it. I don't know how many people would consider it their favorite Chemicals album overall. Well, that is besides myself. Yeah, I've kind of made it clear over the course of several different old videos that Push the Button is easily my favorite Chemicals album, and honestly, it's not even that close. Which is kind of funny because the iTunes and Discogs reviews as of recording this that I saw, they were overwhelmingly negative. Like the one iTunes review right now that I saw, guy hated the album because it's so far removed from what they were doing on Exit Planet Dust. And one guy on Discogs said he ejected the album in tears of sorrow upon hearing it. And yet here I am saying this album is easily my favorite from these guys. I mean, I don't think I'm actually alone on this one. Galvanize is one of the Chemicals' most successful singles ever, and as of right now, their most popular track on iTunes. So, okay, I obviously can't speak for anyone besides myself, but I'll do my best to detail why I love this album so much. I will not deny this album is not Exit Planet Dust. I guess some people could make the argument that Push the Button is the Chemicals' sellout album, in that it's a pretty hard turn for the commercial, very few instrumentals, the entire album focused on the poppier side of the Chemicals style. But that being said, I wouldn't go so far as to say it sounded like a completely different band. I mean, on one hand, given how this is by far the album of theirs I've listened to the most, it feels hard to wrap my head around what it would be like to someone who is used to just the first 3 albums. But I've always liked the poppier side of the Chemicals, just since day one. Leave Home, Alive Alone, Block Rockin' Beats, Where Do I Begin, Let Forever Be, Hey Boy, Hey Girl, The State We're In, The Test. The point is, this did not come from nowhere. And even so, this album, aside from being notably much more commercial focused than their other stuff, never really struck me as that different from their usual stuff. It still had their unique blend of rock music and electronic music that could deliver on super explosive grooves while also occasionally stuffing a more chill vocal track in there. To this guy, this is a lot like the other Chemicals albums, except somehow they managed to nail every single hook. There are 11 tracks on this thing, and I love all of them. They're all super catchy, and I can remember how every single one goes. So let's go down track by track, shall we? Okay, so our first track is Galvanize. You know, the track I use whenever I'm right about to go down somebody's discography so far. As if it wasn't freaking obvious by the intro of this video, I do very much love this track. Main reason I use it in the In Brief segment is because the Chemical Brothers were the first band I ever reviewed in which I was familiar with their entire back catalog up to that point, and I decided to introduce the segment with the most explosive, pumped up, and recognizable track I could think of from these guys. And the rest is history. I really can't say enough good about Galvanize, from Q-Tip's charismatic rapping to the hook with all the string sections and pummeling samples that caught my ears and had me in love immediately from first listen. To the robotic voices telling you to push a button. Just a ridiculously fun track. And then The Boxer is our second track, and as much as I love Galvanize, I think I might love The Boxer a little more. Tim Burgess from Life is Sweet reprises here, and admittedly, I didn't even recognize it was the same person when I first heard it. Yeah, I heard Exit Planet Dust before this one, by the way, in case you were wondering. Now, it is possible that Life is Sweet just didn't leave enough an impression for me at the time to make the connection, but yeah, his performance on The Boxer is a lot more intense. He really puts his all into this performance, where on Life is Sweet he seemed a bit more detached and cool. But whatever, The Boxer is a super addicting track. I can't seem to shake this feeling! And the repetitive stuttering samples that follow are also insanely fun as well. Anyway, Believe is next, and this is our fast-paced banger track along the lines of Under the Influence, and it began in Africa. I can't not refer to that track as such. But I much prefer Believe to those two tracks. As hard and intense and super fun to listen to as they are, they kind of disappear from my mind besides the samples that say their title. Believe is a lot catchier. I mean, it's fundamentally really similar to those two tracks, but the vocals repeatedly expressing, I needed to believe, really sticks in the head, as does the rest of the groove of the track. And it transitions perfectly into Hold Tight London, which is, I guess, kind of like our The State We're In equivalent, featuring the vocals of Beth Orton sound-alike, Anna Lynn Williams. And once again, it is much catchier than that track as well. The actual lyrics not so much, as Williams kind of mumbles them. But the guitar licks that hold everything together, and what sounds like a choir of kids singing, really helped cemented this track in my mind. Then there's Come Inside. I think if you wanted your fix of just straightforward old school Chemical Brothers, you might be able to find it here. Amazing bass lines and hip hop samples, with one particularly great one near the end that really hits hard. And of course they nail the hook with the two not Nancy Wangs repeatedly intoning, would you like to come in now? Would you like to come inside? The Big Jump is admittedly not one of the better tracks on here. It doesn't have much of anything to it outside of its really repetitive hooks. The big jump. The big jump. But I don't know, I still find it really fun. And the buzzing bass lines don't hurt either. Then there's Left, Right, which is just a straight rap song with Anwar Superstar. Bit of a ballsy move, I'll admit, just making a straight rap song, but even the rap-hating old me really loved this track, and almost didn't even register that this was a rap song because the beat was so unbelievably great, and it had like a melody and everything. And the rapping is really great too. Anwar's giving it his all and really delivering a cool anti-war message that connects pretty well and was pretty timely as well. Came out right when the Iraq War was starting, and I think it's still pretty relevant even now. And once again, it's really catchy. All my soldiers march with me left, right. All my soldiers march with me left, right. And again, on the exact opposite side, you got Close Your Eyes, which is another super chill track like Hold Tight London. But it's got a bit more of an alternative bend to it. Kind of like Dream On, I guess, but way better if you ask me. Maybe a bit Coldplay-esque. I don't know. It's just a really nice, sweet track, all the glockenspiel and bell sounds helping add to the emotion of the track. And if you're wondering if the hook is any good, do you even need to ask at this point? What if it all were to change like I thought it would? What if it all were to change like... But then there's Shake, Break, Bounce. On one hand, I am gonna have to admit this is a really easy pick for least favorite. Just like the Big Jump, it's repetitive and doesn't have much to it. On top of that, it sounds kinda lumpy and awkward and doesn't build to anything. But, as with all the other tracks on here, it still nails its hook. There are repetitive guitar samples, the falsetto voices. It's just a really fun and catchy track, even if it is a little odd. Shake, break, bounce. Marvo Ging is kinda in the same boat, but this track is an instrumental. Well, I think there are actually voices in there, but they're mixed so low and the lyrics are both unintelligible and meaningless that, yeah, they're basically just instrumental textures. And I'm cool with that. I like me some instrumentals. And what sounds like a reversed violin is the hook. Once again, nailed. And every build-up and payoff is great. So, 10 earworms in a row. The last track, Surface to Air, is the only track on this album that is not a total earworm, unfortunately. The hook is non-existent. And this track more than makes up for its lack of catchiness, just by being an epic long-form track along the Sunshine Underground lines. albeit much less psychedelic and more like trance post-rock-like, I think, whatever. The emotions ride high on this track, which resembles U2's Where the Streets Have No Name a tiny bit now that I think of it. But it's not that close. The flanging synth bass and other kinda sorta not really orchestral-like synths adds lots of texture and spaciousness, and while in the end it's not as detailed or complicated as the Sunshine Underground, it delivers on the same emotional weight and makes for a stunning closer to a stunning album. And that's about it as far as individual tracks. Now for overall, I think before I finish I should bring up a point this one guy made on my Surrender review. Like, they were kind of pissed because I criticized Surrender for not being well put together, and how I felt like Dig Your Own Hole was objectively better because it came together better as a whole. And, okay, I think that was just bad wording on my part, as I believe music isn't an objective thing. There's no right or wrong way to do anything. It all comes down to opinions and tastes, and we're all gonna be different in that way. Reason why I bring this up is, the 11 tracks in Push the Button don't particularly complement each other or work together in any way, aside from a couple of smooth segues. It's basically an album of 11 singles. This is why the whole objective thing I said in that review was kind of bullshit. I mean, because an album that comes together really well is something that I will always respect and give points for regardless of my personal enjoyment in the end, because that's just something that I always like to see out of albums. But, I mean, an album can just still present, like, just 11 songs without really trying to tie them together and still get major points. Because Push the Button isn't great because it has any overarching concept or reaching for something super high or anything like that. It's great because I love all 11 tracks on it, and every track is possible single material. And I know not everyone is going to agree with me on this point either. I know some people hate this album, some people think it's easily their worst. Well, that's fine, we're all different people with different tastes, but I wholeheartedly, unapologetically love every second of Push the Button, and nobody's gonna change that for me. And I'm overall feeling a solid 9 out of 10. But of course, it's just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.